I'm Raul Labrador. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Idaho. It's a great honor to be here for Chris Boyd. I've known Chris for a long time. The whole time I've known him, he's been a prosecutor, but more important to me, he's been a man of his word. He's a person that I always know that I can rely on. He's willing to tell me as the Attorney General, Raul, I disagree with you, and here's the reasons why. Because he's not going to sell his soul just because I'm the Attorney General of the state. He's going to question me, he's going to push me, he's going to challenge me, and that's what we want in a public servant. That's what we want in a person who's going to be out there doing the work for you. So it's really important that you understand his character, because I have never doubted his character in the 10 years that I have known him. I ran for Attorney General because I thought Idaho needed a strong, aggressive Attorney General. We had some battles in the courts that we were losing. The reality is that there are things that we can do in the law to fight the liberal judges in Boise, the liberal judges in the Ninth Circuit. And we're doing that right now. In fact, one of the small victories that we got out of the Supreme Court is still an ongoing case, which is the case that we just went to the Supreme Court on last week. For the first time in many, many years, they actually told the Ninth Circuit, you know what, we're going to take the case from you and we're going to decide it ourselves. Now, we need to wait to see how they decide the case, because we don't know exactly how they're going to decide the case. But that doesn't happen very often. It's because you have to be creative, you have to be aggressive, and you have to do the things that are necessary to ensure that you're fighting for the people of your state and the people of your county. And I think Chris is the kind of attorney who will do that. The Attorney General is in charge of internet crimes against children. He's in charge of investigating internet crimes against children. That unit investigates these horrible people out there that are doing porn online with kids that are actually either creating videos or trading videos with people. It's one of the most horrendous crimes that can happen in the state of Idaho. When I went to the Office of Attorney General, I sat down with the unit, with the leadership in the criminal division, and decided to make some major changes. I told the person who was the supervisor, or the chief at the time, that I wanted him to move on. I brought in my own chief, who was one of the prosecutors in the unit already. And I told him that I needed him to look at everything that was happening in the criminal division, and he needed to report back to me and tell me what needed to change and what needed to stay the same. One of the things that he advised me to do is to change the leadership in ICAC. For years, the Attorney General has been going to the legislature and saying that they needed more funding for ICAC, because it started with a 200 case backlog, then it turned into a 500 case backlog, then it turned into a 1,000 case backlog, and eventually turned into a 1,400 case backlog. So at the time that I became the Attorney General, there were 1,400 cases that had not even been investigated. So I went ahead and switched the commanders. I hired a new commander, and I can tell you that in 6 months, we got rid of that entire backlog. Wow. I made a lot of changes, and the media went crazy, and the media started attacking me, and they said all these horrible things about me. You know what they didn't do? They didn't print that a 1,400 case backlog was actually gotten rid of. Why? Because they don't want me to look good. And that's the same kind of pressures that Chris is going to have. But what I like about Chris is that he's willing to make those hard choices. Because a good leader goes in, identifies the problems that are happening, doesn't make excuses for those problems, just solve those problems and create solutions to those problems. And that's what I've seen Chris do every single time. He has prosecuted murderers, child rapists, and he has prosecuted drug traffickers. And he has been successful every single time. Something that he has that even the current prosecutor didn't have, happens to be a friend of mine, he actually has that experience that he can train other prosecutors to do the job in the best possible way, because it's not an easy job to take on the bad things that are happening in Idaho, the bad things that are happening in this county. And I'll finish with this. On my first day in office, I was sued by the Satanic Temple. They sued the state of Idaho because they said that abortion was part of their sacrament. I defeated the Satanic Temple, and the media actually printed what I wrote, which is AG Labrador defeats Satan, which is the best headline that I'm ever going to have. In fact, I should just do a mic drop and just say, I'm done, and this is it.
Recently we had a murder up in New Meadows. It was a lovely couple that were heartlessly gunned down. They were gunned down because the state of Washington failed to do its job. They failed. The justice system failed. The man had gouged out someone's eyeballs on videotape. It's all videotape, high definition. Gouged out someone's eyeballs with the man screaming in terror. And they let him go. They let that man out of jail pending. He had not been tried yet. And you can blame it on the prosecutor, or you can blame it on the judge, and there's blame to go around. But when the justice system fails, there are real consequences. People get hurt, bad things happen. A beautiful Idaho couple was dead because of it. They're about our age, early 40s. They were a great pillar of the community up there in New Meadows. They ran that in, just the two of them. They didn't even own guns. They were kind of a little bit liberal, and they were the sweetest, kindest people you'd ever meet. And we knew them, and they were gunned down by this kind of maniac. And we didn't get everything that I wanted out of that case, even that one. I mean, sometimes you fight, and you fight like hell, and sometimes you don't get what you want out of the judge. But if you put it all on there, and you lay it all on the line, if you make sure that sentencing hearing isn't phoned in, if you make sure that you did a sentencing memorandum, you did the work, you put on all the witnesses, and you were prepared, boy, you were prepared, you did the work, man, you were ready. And then you went up and you delivered that argument, and you fought for those victims. Kim came up to me, she's sister of Sean, who was killed, and came up and hugged me afterwards, and we just wept because the judge gave 30 years instead of 2 life sentences, which is what he should have done. That was Judge Roker. That's the heavy cases. There's a lot of other things that we do that are kind of awesome. We deal with people who are addicted to drugs. A lot of people. They're your friends. They're your family members. They're people who are. I mean, maybe you're frustrated with them. Maybe you disowned them. Maybe whatever's going on. But there are people who God loves them still and wants them to find their way back. And it is up to the prosecutor to have the wisdom to be able to differentiate from the person that is a drug trafficker who needs to go to prison for the whole time, right? And someone who you can put into drug court and you can work with. And this is the most rewarding job that you can have. And I learned that here in Canyon County. I learned that here working with shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement and people I love, Sheriff Donahue, he endorsed me, and I really appreciate that. We don't even see eye to eye on politics, right? We're not really in the same aisle, so to speak, But he sees that we need someone who is prepared to do the work, who has who can do it. You're not just fighting so Daryl, if he's a victim of crime, I'm not just fighting for Daryl, right? I don't represent Daryl. I represent the people behind him, right? And so if Daryl lies to me or something like that, you might stop the trial. I saw Doug once stop a trial once and Doug's the chief deputy over there. I've seen him stop a trial once when something wasn't right, when a victim told flat out lies. He stopped it and dismissed the case. And that's justice too. Your obligation is to justice, is to doing the right thing. You're a warrior. You're fighting in a war. And you don't always win. Sometimes you just go and you're ready to rock, and you deliver as best you possibly can. But if you don't do the work, if you don't have the preparation, if you're not ready to go, if you're not, for whatever reason, you'll feel bad about that one for your whole life, you know. Sometimes that moral courage extends outside the criminal range. Sometimes it means standing up to the powers that be when they do something that's unethical or unconstitutional. And in 2020, when the COVID pandemic happened and everybody was afraid, and justifiably so, everybody was terrified. But then the governor came out and said that you need to, and please, and he did, in his order, he specifically requested that prosecutors prosecute with misdemeanors anyone who fails to obey the lockdown order. And at the time, there was no exception for going to church, and there was no exception for any one of a number of different things. And so I wrote him a letter, and I said, I can't obey your order. I was the only prosecutor in the state of Idaho to do that, actually. I did call around. I think that's painful. That might be part of the reason why I have a challenger today. The federal government will do overreach, and sometimes the prosecutor in your local jurisdiction can actually do a few things to protect you. When they came down and they said, well, you guys remember this, when everybody's pretty nuts and the feds were like, you know, everybody who doesn't get this shot needs to be thrown out of work. I mean, thrown out of work. Bizarre, right? It's crazy to think about. It makes you think that we're living in some kind of different country than the United States of America. But they looked at that and they said, hey, we're going to use any contractor who is contracted with the federal government is going to be required to make sure that you have that vaccine. That they call it that. And the state legislators got together. They tried to get together and they tried to push a bill that would stop that, and that was unsuccessful. And so at the county level, we put together an ordinance. I helped draft it. We put together an ordinance, and the county commissioners passed it, and we made it a misdemeanor for someone to discriminate against someone else because of their medical vaccine status. That's something that when things get really bad, your county people can do for you. And I want to note before, like at the time, the people were, you know, showing up from the news, from like the Statesman, and they were calling us absolute crazy psychos. Like we were just some weirdos for doing that. Hilariously, the governor signed into law last year that exact ordinance. That's just a state law now. So now 2 years later, once it's all over and there's no money on the line, that's when that kind of gets passed. But you want in this position someone who's willing to fight, someone who will fight for you. And I have a history and a record of fighting. I will fight for you every time. I will stand up and fight for you if you're a victim of crime, if your loved one's a victim of crime. I will fight for you then. I will fight for you if it's the federal government that's coming down and that's overreaching and doing something that's not right. And that won't be political. I won't be doing that because I think that helps my political friends or hurts my political friends. I'll do that on the basis of what's right and what I believe the Constitution says. I'll do that as calling balls and strikes. I will stand up and fight for you in that way every single time. And so what I'm asking is, if you'll stand up and fight with me, I'll fight with you. Fight. Let's stand shoulder to shoulder. I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with those police officers. We can do that together, and we can win this thing May 21st. So thank you. This race is really important, and the message is good. I think the message resounds with people. People who hear it, it's a pretty good case to make. If I can say, guys, I'm the only prosecutor in the case, or the only prosecutor in this race. I'm the only person who actually is a prosecutor. I'm running for the prosecutor. That's a pretty easy case to make to people, you know, even quickly, but I got to get the message out. There's 280,000 people in this county. There's 30,000 people that are going to vote in this primary. I would promise you a get out of jail free card, but that's illegal. What I would say for you is that my door will always be open. I'll be happy to hear from you guys, and you know I'll be even-handed and fair. So, how's that?
Thank you.
Chris didn't talk about his opponent at all tonight, and I think that's for good reason. He has really avoided trying to sling mud or talk negatively about his opponent. I don't know how much you guys know about his opponent, but his opponent, as you've kind of heard already tonight, has never prosecuted a case, right? I'm not sure that he's ever done a jury trial, to be completely honest with you. And that may or may not be true, I don't know. But he certainly does not have the experience that Chris Boyd has. He certainly does not have the experience as a prosecutor. And he has a criminal history. So this isn't something that you need to take my word for. The police report's out there. You can find the link to the police report on Wikipedia, right? And the police report's pretty horrendous. It includes a steak knife and domestic violence and him cutting himself in front of children. And it's pretty crazy stuff. His own mother, when he ran for legislature, wrote a letter saying he wasn't fit to hold office. Canyon County has a long history of prosecutors that have not done the right thing. You guys need to get somebody like Chris Boyd in there or you're going to lose your county. You're going to end up with crime, you're going to end up with drugs, you're going to end up with all kinds of problems. And I can tell you right now that it is cheaper to put forth the effort and go out and talk to your friends and your neighbors and to donate some money to Chris now and get him elected than it will be to try and fix the mess that your county or state becomes in 10 years if you elect the wrong person. This is important. Your kids and your grandkids are going to go to school here. You want the schools to be safe. You want the streets for them to grow up want to be safe. We have an opportunity to actually put somebody with integrity in office, and so make sure that you're telling people, look, if you can't donate money, donate time. Chris can absolutely use the help. It's a huge county. We're down to 3 weeks left before the primary, so it is important. We need your help to make sure this happens. Law enforcement is absolutely supporting him, your sheriff's supporting him, and the media has largely ignored it. The only way he's going to get the message out to the people so that they know what the difference is and who to vote for is if he has the money to do it. So you can donate to him on his website. What's your website, Chris?
BoydGetsJustice.com.
BoydGetsJustice.com. Thanks again for coming. Appreciate it.